どうもこんばんは。6万円でシリーズ。はい。
Alright, hello everyone. I am Zelo. I'm going to be your English restreamer commentator for Jugumba's run of Mega Man Battle Network. Hoping to get one more other person here. Hopefully they'll be here in time, but if not, I'll be able to cover all the bases here.
この RTA の魅力が十分に伝えられ、どのようなものかを見せられるように頑張って走っていきたい
Those of you not familiar with the Mega Man Battle Network series, this is a spin-off of the main Mega Man timeline where basically they research into networks instead of robots. And we just have kind of an alternate timeline dealing with really cool internet technology. Fun RPG series, one of my favorites. And we'll get to showcase Battle Network 1 right here. Jugumba is one of the best runners of this game and of the entire series. So the category we're doing is single segment. This game is pretty infamous for being very easy to manipulate the random number generator, and any percent would take big advantage of that, but we're not going to be doing that for single segment. We're going to be doing this with no saves, hopefully, and we're going to be playing it with basically no random number manipulation, so it'll look like a very fast casual playthrough where we're just going to have to adapt on the fly here. So this tutorial is pretty scripted right here. Each side of the field is divided into a 3x3 area. You get to move on your side, enemies get to move on theirs. And you always draw 5 chips at the beginning of a battle. You basically have a folder or a deck of 30 chips to pick from, and it's basically randomized what you draw. The first 2 fights of this tutorial are scripted, where you're going to get the same thing, and just kind of teaches you the basic mechanics of how to use the chips, how to combine things, and just the general mechanics. But the third fight is a little bit random, and we'll see if he gets any good luck on those chips. The chips can do various things. They can either be straightforward attacks like cannons or bombs. They can have utilities such as like panel out or health recovery. But we pretty much want to have attacks and escapes for this run. So we're going to try and swap out things as we go, as we get more powerful chips from enemies or from different parts of the internet or computers. So as far as basic plot goes, you play as Happy-Go-Lucky Lan with his Net Navigator Mega Man.exe, and we'll be taking Mega Man through the internet. And we actually have a little bit of small plot right here to just kind of get things set up, where we need to find a program that's lost on the internet for our friend Glide. So we're going to go hunt around for a bit. So this game has random encounters related to step count, and we want to try and get into as few battles as possible while we're running around the internet. And unlike later games, there aren't any special tools to help us like prevent encounters as we move. So we're going to manipulate our step count in ways by talking to various NPCs or interacting with certain areas in the internet areas. On that note, while we're getting into some fights, there's a few things that we definitely want to have happen. If we can run from a fight using the escape chip, we generally want to do that. There's no manual run command in this game compared to later ones, so the only way to escape from a fight that we don't want to do is draw an escape and use that to end the fight instantly. So we generally want to try and escape from random fights, but we do need some chips for later in the game for plot reasons in order to progress. So we're going to try and at least fill out a few fights if we don't either get escapes or if we think we can finish something in one turn to see if we can get those chips early. Whenever you finish a fight, you are graded based on time and the number of hits you take, and also in the number of movement tiles you moved across. And you get a ranking. Based on that ranking, you get a reward. It can be Zenny, it can be Virus's chip. Usually will be a chip at a better rank. Goes from 1 to 10 to S. So it's a pretty quick fight there, using the Buster to wear down the Medars, and then cross-gun to finish. Unfortunately, we only got some Zenny. Really unfortunate there. Hey, Draco.
Good morning.
Oh, this is... I'm going to have to drop for a second because I cannot hear Draco at all if he's talking.
Testing, testing. Hello.
Yeah, I need to drop real quick. I will be right back. Draco can handle it.
And good morning, everyone. This is Mega Man Battle Network. I'm sure Zello has already given a short rundown of what this run is going to contain. JRPG based on the original Mega Man games, heavily featuring characters from the original, mainly trilogy of Mega Man titles. There's more recycling of characters from Mega Man 1 and 2 in this game, and a lot of unique mechanics in the spin-off series. I'm going to wait for Zello to get back to discuss specifics.
初手にエスケープが引けなかった場合、一ターン分ロスします。秒数にして約10秒ロスします。
As we are right now inside Fireman's comp, there are a few distinct networks in this game that are themed on elements and contain viruses of particular elements. So you get a lot of particular fire viruses in the oven comp, as we're in, and coming up pretty soon already to the first boss of the run, which is Fireman, which is more of a tutorial boss than anything else. Fireman is relatively simple, has a pretty small health pool, and just gets used to using most of the arsenal that you have in your starting folder. So a quick folder edit here as we're going into Fireman, putting in some more powerful chips into the folder, taking some mini bombs on turn 1, where Fireman is always going to start with some relatively predictable movement, moving a scripted number of times before stopping to attack, making it easy to hit with mini bombs.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Welcome back. Good morning.
Do you already talk about folder stacking for this fight?
A little bit, yeah. The only real extent that folder stacking can be used in this run is with sorting where chips appear in the folder. The other Battle Network games have very heavy RNG manipulation, up to and including controlling exactly what you draw. That also exists in this game, but with this being single segment, there's very limited control you have over that. The most you really have is sorting the chips that you prefer to see towards the top of the folder, as those are more likely to appear on turn 1. So for boss combat, we're going to see heavy attack chips being sorted to the top, and then for general playing through the game, we're going to actually sort the escapes towards the top of the folder so that you're more likely to draw them and you can escape more frequently on turn 1.
学校に登校して今ネット君遅刻しそうな状況なんですけど、教室に直接行くのではなく途中の図書室に入ってエスケープを
Yeah, a lot of the time loss ends up being getting into a lot of encounters just due to the step count being a bit random. Having a lot of escapes towards the top and being more likely to draw them mitigates a lot of time loss, because especially in the later game when enemies are very strong, you can lose a lot of time being stuck in an encounter you really don't want to be in.
Yeah, that is most encounters in the run, unfortunately. There's always an opportunity to get spare chips, since we need to hit a specific number of chips in the library to even be able to finish the run, but there are, by and large, far more encounters than there are chips that you can get. And with them all being random in the first place, it's definitely to your advantage to be able to escape from encounters. I think there's a general strategy as far as optimizing combat goes where in this sort of situation, if you can just take an encounter in one turn and you need to try and be able to get a new chip, such as in this possible case, it's always best to take the encounter. But even if you'd like to escape from the encounter and you don't have an escape on turn 1, it can be faster to just try and add on turn 1 and wait for an escape on turn 2. Or, depending on how much firepower you have, it can be faster to spend the entirety of turn 1 doing the combat and coming out with it with a slightly longer fight.
Yeah, a good general rule of thumb is if you can get an 8 or higher rank for a chip that you could possibly want for the library, you generally try and do that. Otherwise, you just try and escape. Because 8 or higher is pretty likely to get you the chip, although in BN1, I think you get a max 50% chance of getting a chip versus as any drop, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I think the game always just randomly selects between the rewards that you're eligible for from combat. So if you're fighting one virus, I think you have a maximum of 50% chance to get an actual chip reward, with your chance to get a chip being increased if you're fighting more than one type of virus. So we're in the school network here, with the gimmick of this area being we've got a bunch of number doors. And the solution to these puzzles is scripted for the first few of them, where they have a set solution based on some events in the real world. And then we have these random number doors here, where the only hints that you get are that the game will tell you if the first digit is correct, if the second digit is correct, and if your guess is too high or too low.
Yeah, I think you want to start with, for those random doors, you want to start with like 42 or 43, and then you do it in a very specific way to where you get it within 6 tries. Because if you don't get it by the 6th try, the game will reset the password for that door and you have to go through it again.
Yeah, I think there is essentially an algorithmic approach that runners use, but I'm not entirely sure what the mathematics is behind the numbers used. But it is very consistent, like it works very reliably.
Yes. I just lost being able to watch any stream. I need to reboot again. I'll be in and out.
Okay, so in the real world, we go to this classroom, interact with this desk, as this corresponds to the network location where Mega Man is trapped. So we need to reboot the desk to be able to free Mega Man. Getting through this number door, where it's 90-something. 92. Not going for a blue mystery data at the top of the map there, as we already have a Quake chip, which is what I believe that contains. Very quick turn 1 fight there. Just getting another Quake. So even though we already have a copy of Quake 1 in the folder, Quake is just a good chip in general to stack in high quantities. It's like a mini bomb where it only targets 3 panels ahead. It only attacks that single panel, but it is a very powerful chip, dealing 90 damage. So this is a big boss killer chip, especially early on where HP values are relatively low. If you can draw multiple Quakes in one turn, you can deal a significant portion of a boss's health, and that will destroy most viruses in one hit. Also getting an HP memory from that cabinet there. Every HP memory you get, increasing Mega Man's max HP by 20 and increasing Mega Man's level by 1. And we need to be level 30 by the end of the game to be able to progress. So a certain amount of HP memories are going to be taken, a certain amount of power-ups are going to be taken, and a elemental armor bought near the end of the game as well to reach the level requirement.
Okay.
So I got Numberman here. Numberman never moves, has 2 distinct phases where above 50% health he's going to summon these number balls. You need to deal the damage on the ball to break them to stop getting hit by it, and otherwise just wail on him with attacks. The projectile weapons like bombs and quakes are very useful in this fight, and the sword chips are next to useless in this fight since Numberman never moves from the back, so just taking swords here to get them out of the screen and draw new chips.
Yeah, I don't think I covered chip codes earlier. You can take chips of the same type, like two swords, or you can take chips with the same letter code, which is what Jagumba did there to get the swords out of the way so he can draw new chips, which is sometimes a better option than leaving a bunch of clutter, only having one chip out of the folder at a time.
Yeah, this is a very fundamental part of playing Battle Network when it comes to folder construction, looking at how to increase the fluidity of the folder, being able to draw more chips per turn, and the best way to do that consistently is to reduce the number of codes that you have in the folder. So you don't have complete control over this in a run, although every chip has a set number of codes that it can come in, and it's generally determined by the busting rank that you get is going to determine which code you get a chip in. Coming over to Mail's network here, we need a chip from here to be able to fight Dex and Gutsman, and need to fight Dex so that we can get access to his network area so that we can fix whatever's going wrong with the Metrolane service.
That's very nice, getting a Quake right there.
Yeah, I think that's the third Quake now.
Yeah, even if you don't get a good code for your chips, it's better in this kind of run to just put the chips in and get the attacks, because most of the attacks are just very useful in general to be able to deal with the enemies quickly, and we don't really care as much about fluidity as we do in a more streamlined playthrough. We just kind of make the best of what we got, since we're just kind of going from place to place. We're not going to be doing any like real farming.
Yeah, I'd say general rule of thumb, if you can, in the early game here, stack your folder with a few Quakes and a few Shockwaves, that's just a good general position to be in. They're relatively powerful. Shockwave especially deals penetrating damage where it attacks the whole row, as Gutsman is using here, which is very good for general virus cleanup. And Quake especially very good for boss encounters, just because it deals such heavy single target damage.
Unfortunate dash attack does like almost no damage in this game compared to later ones.
Yeah, it's a little underpowered, unfortunately. But there you go. Pretty clean Gutsman. Not
yeah,
too
great guts fight.
インターネット1から2へ行く権利を得ました。ということで今からネット君はロックマンをプラグインさせてインターネット2に行くことになります。
So we have access to the later part of the internet now. The internet is divided into 16 areas, and unfortunately in BN1 they're a little confusing to navigate. They were just kind of not really used to the kind of map design. There's no labeling, so it's pretty easy to get lost.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is one thing that the later entries of the series really did improve on, the general layout and aesthetic of the internet.
I do dig 1's internet theme, though.
It's a nice theme, for sure. And also having to escape with the escape chip is... It's clear that this is the first game in the series in some mechanical capacities where, like, unfortunately, being able to escape by just using the L button is absent in this game, but the combat in general in this game is very much balanced around not being able to escape as frequently. Like, I think there's an interesting divide where the rest of the games in the series, you have persistent HP between the encounters, and so the fights, in my opinion, they're generally tuned to be less brutal in the end game, whereas the virus encounters in this game, when you get towards the end game, they can be surprisingly brutal. And Jug is going to have some pretty strict strats to be able to deal with particular virus types where you can especially in a run like this where you're relatively underpowered, get deleted in like 2 or 3 hits easily.
Speaking of power, you might have noticed we did a little bit of shopping as we were exiting Area 1. We did buy 2 HP memory ups, which do increase your max HP, and 1 Buster power up. The Buster power up, we're going to throw those onto attack and charge for this run, because the Buster definitely has some utility later down the road. And we also need to increase Mega Man's level, which is increased by getting these kinds of power ups, because there are a couple of plot devices that will not trigger unless we're at a minimum level. So there's definitely a bit of a money concern as we go as well.
Yeah, the stats are fairly self-explanatory. You deal damage equal to your attack stat with the Buster. The charge stat affects how quickly you can charge, and the speed stat affects how quickly you can fire the Buster in rapid succession. The speed stat is largely going to be ignored, though, as there's a way to partially ignore it. If you just change panels, it resets your shot timer, so you can shoot relatively fast by just hopping back and forth between 2 panels. And so you get a lot more mileage out of just increasing the attack stat so that your DPS is higher.
The shot counter timer also is decreased the closer to the enemy you are. So if he's right in the middle of this sortie's face, and you can spam the Buster right there. So Rapid's a lot less useful than the other categories for the Buster.
Okay, no longsword. Coming up to Stoneman here, probably 1 more encounter. Oh, that's pretty lucky.
Yeah,
that's definitely in the region where you can get a random encounter.
Yeah, so Stoneman, like Number Man, doesn't move either, so we're going to be looking for shot chips, bombs, and quakes here. We did slap an attack power-up onto the Buster, and we're just going to kind of stutter step while we're waiting for the custom gauge to fill back up so we can drop more chips. So Stoneman's not particularly dangerous. It's mostly just avoiding the boulders, but the rock cubes are pretty harmless.
Yeah, despite the high HP count, Stoneman can be a pretty quick encounter, since each boss enemy has a particular threshold of damage they need to take in order to flinch and get some iframes, and I think you need to deal 100 damage to Stoneman to get him to flinch, which at this point in the game is actually very hard to deal 100 damage in 1 hit. So if you're able to just draw a lot of high firepower chips, you can just unload them all into Stoneman and drain his health very quickly.
Yeah, we got a ton of bombs and quakes during that fight, so that was quite quick. Very well handled.
Yeah, pretty respectable fight overall. You always get a set amount of Zenny from the boss fights. I don't think it matters what your busting rank is in boss fights, as far as the reward that you get from the fight.
Yeah, unlike the virus encounters, you can only get money from the story fights for the bosses. You only can get their chips when you fight their ghosts on the internet, which we may do for 1, but probably not. Well, I think we do maybe Fireman?
It depends if you need random chips at that point in the run, yeah. They more or less exist as backups for if you need to fill out the chip library. And then, of course, there's a bunch of operators in the real world where you can fight their navis in static locations as well, so those can be used as a last-ditch resort to get chips for the library. But hopefully, RNG willing, not going to have to do that, and we'll just get a bunch of, as we call, RNG chips through the run. There's also the chip trader, which can also be used to try and attempt for random chips. Which maybe Jug will try that and see what he gets.
Yeah, I think he's been doing that for his practice runs and even in his regular attempts, because you can the chip trader, as far as at least the later games go, it's kind of biased to try and at least get you something that you don't already have in your library. So you can get rid of all the stuff that you don't need and possibly get stuff and not have to worry about chips later on.
Yeah, it's all just a big gamble. You have 2 different types of chip traders. You can trade either 3 or 10 chips, and they'll give you more common and more uncommon chips, respectively, but it's always random. So you can get lucky with the special chip trader, trade in 10 and get something really valuable like a Gaia 3 or a Hero Sword, just some of the most powerful chips in the game. It is possible, but it's never guaranteed.
Imagine getting a Hero Sword in this run to use.
So if I'm remembering correctly, we're about to hit the Iceman scenario where the water is going to go off.
Yeah, we did a little bit of prep since we had to visit Dad. He's not at the office. But we did get his code from the computer for later because we can open up a shortcut during one of the later scenarios, which will cut out a lot of backtracking.
Yeah, having foreknowledge of internet shortcuts that you can use saves a ton of time in this game versus starting from Land's room every time you need to access the internet. So something's wrong with the water supply and they don't have any water, so they're going to go to school and then they're going to get told to go home, I believe. So instead we're going to end up going to the Scilab to investigate what exactly is going on with the water.
Make sure to hydrate, everyone, before this ever happens to you.
Yeah, I need to drink some more water, actually. Give me a sec. Alright, we're good. Oh, here we go, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to go ahead and start using the chip treasure. So we threw in, I think, one last escape. We're going to use the 10. Let's see what we get out of here. Oh,
Did he put the high cannon in as well, or did he trade the high cannon?
I don't know, but those were both awful.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This is marathon luck for sure.
Oh, wow, Ice Cube.
Okay,
we got something out of it. And
saves a bit of money, I think. 'Cause I think Ice Cube is one of the chips you plan to spend Zenny on, so I think that might just be saving a bit of money.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, once you have a chip registered in the library, you do not need to keep it in the pack. You can just go ahead and toss it into Chip Trader, and you will keep the library credit. So, very, very handy mechanic.
Now, one thing that's interesting about this game in particular is if you are super committed to trying for something good out of the chip trader, you can save and retry for it if you really want. The other games in the series, they realized how much the chip trader can be abused by just keeping on trying for it. So from Battle Network 2 onwards, the game auto-saves when you use the chip traders, but it does not in Battle Network 1. So if you don't get what you want, you can just reload a save and try again.
Yes, especially if you accidentally flush down a chip earlier that you need for a giant trading sequence.
Playing through these games as a kid, in more than one game, may or may not have casually made things a lot more difficult for myself by using the chip trader more than I should have and trading away story-relevant chips.
Always a fun time. Another HP memory right there in the locker.
Yep, just here inquiring at the waterworks about what's going on, and Lan basically suspects that something is odd, so we're just going to go and hide out in Dad's office until everyone leaves, and then go back and investigate for ourselves with no one around.
I used to want to do that as a kid, just like wait at the office and just go explore the cubicles.
I mean, this is quite the office, the like government complex where they just let the kid run around unsupervised.
On skates too.
Right, water comp. Some pretty annoying virus types in here where the power level starts to ramp up, the HP levels start to ramp up, and the main gimmick of this comp being, of course, the ice that's everywhere, causing you to slide around, where you're going to have ice physics. And some precise movement is going to be needed to traverse some of these ice patches, as they just cause you to go in the direction you're moving until you hit a wall, and then you'll move parallel to that wall.
Yeah, we'll also need to manipulate these water faucets here and there. Turning them on and back off clears a lot of the ice paths into drier paths. We'll need to do that in order to get past a few puzzles. We are trying to see if we can get some train arrows, if possible. Good chip to get for some of the fights later down the road.
Yeah, at this point, basically any of the chip results from combat, I'm sure Jug would be happy to see, since it's just filling out the chip library. But the arrow chips in particular, very good for general combat. They hit multiple times and they do stack up to pretty good damage. So, as in here, Jug does have the option to escape, but is taking the fight in hope of getting a chip here. So hopefully a cloud. Oh wow, this is awful RNG so far.
It is worth noting, even though it's kind of hard to do in a run, but if you manage to double or triple delete viruses at the same time, you do get additional level towards your busting rank, so you can use that to help you raise it if you are in need of a chip. But we don't really get a whole lot of those kinds of multi-hit chips in a run typically, so it's hard to set that up often.
So using a faucet here, the first one we found was simply turning it off to clear the path. In this case, we need to turn it on to melt the ice and then turn it off again to clear the path so that we can keep progressing. And whenever you can reach a faucet like that and interact with it in a cutscene, it resets the step counter, which is very nice for just reducing the number of overall encounters you get. So anytime there's a pretty long stretch of movement and then reaching a faucet, it's going to result in quite a bit of non-combat time, which is very nice.
Do mystery datas reset the step count? Because I forget if they do or not.
I don't believe they reset the step count, no. The only thing that really tends to do it is being in a cutscene. And in one of the later comps, triggering a text box yourself can also work towards that purpose in the traffic light comps, which we'll see a lot more later. But by and large, it's simply hoping to reach the end of an area or finding a particular cutscene. And since there is a random element in when the step counter determines when you get an encounter, the number of combats you can get in each screen is very variable. So not only the fights themselves being very random, whether you get the fights at all also tends to be random, and you can lose or save a lot of time depending on how many encounters you get on each map. Yeah, this really unfriendly RNG so far.
Yeah, bad encounter, no escape. So he went ahead and did an ad. Hopefully get an escape right here. There's one.
Which is kind of a shame as well, because these Aqua Tower viruses, this is one chip that you'd really like to get for the folder if at all possible. Aqua Tower being a 120 power chip is definitely one of the more powerful ones you can use in the run. So getting an encounter at this point means definitely set for not having an encounter for the boss skip that's about to happen, where very particular type of skip where there's a couple of places you can do this in the run, where on the frame that you hit a particular type of cutscene trigger, it's possible to pause and go into the folder and do it again to essentially confuse the game as to whether you're in the combat or in the cutscene that immediately comes after it, and you just skip the combat that the trigger is on.
Yeah, it's like that's a one-time thing right there, and that polar bear fight that we skipped is extremely long. Interestingly enough, after we get that skip, we actually can't move land, so we have to jack in and then jack back out in order to get control again. But that saves so much time over doing the polar bear fight. So now we're just gonna head back to town to trigger some cutscenes.
Yeah. And that fight in particular, a big source of time loss if getting it wrong, because with this category in particular being single segment, that means no saving and reloading if you make a mistake on something like that. You just have to go for it and hope you don't mess it up. Also means that as this game progresses and gets more and more dangerous with the virus fights near the end of the game, it is very possible to take a game over and just plain fail the run, as you don't have a save file to fall back on. With this being a marathon run, I would expect Jug to use some safety saves later on just for the sake of a marathon showcase. I'm not sure if he's saved already.
Yeah, there's a couple of really nasty boss fights later that can really wreck a run, and I've unfortunately seen many practice runs die to some of those. So best of luck when we get around to them. But we're back in the waterworks now after doing some story stuff. We rescued Freud's son. Freud was the lead engineer, and basically his son was kidnapped. That's why he's iced over the plant for the World 3. So we got the handle from his kid, and we're going to use that handle on one of the water faucets so we can progress through the dungeon.
Yeah. And we gave the city grape soda, apparently, and it's making people sick. There's an aqua tower. There you go. So, in reality, we fixed the water system, but I believe the filtration system is still not active, so all the town is getting right now is polluted water. Now, normally, Jug runs with a RNG chips counter on his stream to show what the actual progress is towards how many chips are needed for the end of the game. There's no counter here, but I know that this has not been very good so far in random chips. This is probably like 2 or 3, I want to say.
Yeah, we got the ice cube, we got an aqua tower, but there really hasn't been a whole lot else from viruses, so it's looking a little rough. So we'll see what happens during the mid game.
Yeah, you generally need. It seems I've seen the chip counter be like about 10 or 12 RNG chips, depending on how many I just bought from shops and other sources. It's not relevant until much later in the game, but you still want to be concerned about that from pretty early on, since you don't want to be in a position where you're at the end game and then you need to farm a bunch of chips. You're taking the shockwave just to end the fight right then and there.
There's a cloud.
Nice cloud chip, yeah. One thing that I think I'm going to see Jug use quite often to optimize the time at the end of particular fights is that although you want to take chips as often as possible, it does take time to access the custom screen. So if an enemy is almost dead, it can be faster to just finish them off with the buster rather than go back to the screen to take a chip for a second turn.
Yeah, that definitely becomes more relevant as we add more buster power-ups onto attack so we can get a better buster. We don't need to access the custom screen as much.
I think just making a small mistake there on getting a double kill with the Sonic Wave. I've been really impressed with some of the general fight strategies that I've seen Jug use during streams, where he's really worked out with a lot of these virus layouts how to get double kills and triple kills with particular chip uses.
Yeah, just being able to see what you have in your hand on the fly and being able to know those strats is really good. Like, he's definitely a pro at that. One more buster power-up that's hidden right there. And then we will turn this faucet on and back off to melt some ice, and we'll be able to get through this puzzle in a kind of an unintended way by using a very particular slide right here.
A very particular slide that he used to get the power-up in the first place as well, lining up in a very precise spot to be able to just fall down to where it is, and it essentially skips some of the intended puzzle. So the puzzle being as short as it was, that is not intended. And just a couple more clearing of paths here, and this is the final room of the water comp. So we're about to come to Iceman, which is a very damage boost heavy fight. There's a surprising amount of time that you can spend to just stand right next to Iceman and plug away at him with the buster by just exploiting getting hit, as your invulnerability lasts a surprisingly long time. So sorting powerful chips towards the top, using power up for attack. So okay, we are seeing some safety saves.
Yep, just in case.
Elexor, there you go. So that's a nice 240 damage right off the bat with elemental weakness. So getting hit by the ice cube here, so we can just plug away as there. Okay.
Excellent fight.
Yeah, that was definitely a good fight. Getting the Elexor was just very fortunate there, exploiting the elemental weakness to deal double damage, and Elexor being a very powerful chip.
結構水道局苦戦してた印象はありますけど、思いのほかタイムは悪くないですね。そうですね、そこまでが結構早かったっていうのはあったんで、それのおかげもありますね。で、メットガードいいですね、これ。いいですね。これメットガードなんで。
So we're going to be coming up here to the shopping scenario where we're going to go to Den Town with mail to do some shopping. Going to give us access to a new area, a couple of new networks, and of course a new dungeon, and a new terrorist plot by the World 3. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally hate this map in general, just this network of streets, and
It's pretty bad.
I can never remember like which is which and where you particularly need to be for each screen. It's a labyrinth.
Hey, just at least be thankful they have the stairways to take you from one side of the road to the other. Imagine if you had to use the pathways all the time.
So it's possible to get an encounter. Yep, stagger stepping there because all you're there for is that power up in the network, but it is possible to get an encounter on the way to it, and the viruses in that screen are brutal.
Very worth getting that power from the classroom, though. So it's worth the risk.
So coming up this way to go to Miyu's shop, we're going to get another network path, and we're also going to fight Skullman.
I forget what even is the plot relevance for fighting Skullman.
I don't think there's any plot relevance with Skullman in particular, but I think fighting is what gives you Miyu's network link. Like we check the pot there so that we can get a Quake 3 chip. One of the most powerful chips we'll have in this run, 150 power, and it has a pretty wide range that it hits on the field.
Yeah, definitely one of the best things that we can get for a run.
Okay, M cannon, not the worst.
We're also seeing instances of charge shots here, finally. We do have both half charges and full charges. So, just important to note for later. Especially since we will be using this charge buster on at least couple more bosses for sure.
Yeah, the charge buster is definitely a good source of passive damage. I think if you are right next to an enemy, as here, it's not faster to use the charge, but in all other instances, it can definitely make an appreciable difference. And with viruses as well, the charge buster takes care of viruses pretty quickly.
Unless your name is Popper.
I mean, yeah, very true. We will not see that virus in this run, though, thankfully. So, World 3 is messing with the traffic system and then claiming that they have a cure for the virus that they're selling to people at extortionate rates. So we're like, nah, let's fix the traffic light system and then stop people from getting scammed by World 3. So traffic light comps, a lot of red and blue swapping, and we're going to have a lot of red and blue themed enemies in the area. So a lot of fire enemies, a lot of water enemies, and a lot of opportunities for new chips, thankfully.
Yeah, especially if we can get more Volgear fights and get more Aqua Towers or Heat Towers, that'd be great for the boss fight coming up.
Okay, potentially.
先ほど言いましたが、非常にエンカウントの内容が良かったり悪かったりで、チップ欲しいエンカウントと
Really?
Money.
Come on.
混在しておりまして、いらないエンカウントばっかり
Yeah, this is something. It's possible at this rate that we're going to have to see some backup Navi encounters, such as like Fireman, maybe Stoneman at this rate.
序盤から言っているこのデータライブラリ図鑑をですね、埋めるチップを集めていきたいところになります。信号機の電の1はそういったウイルス出ないんですが、2以降はちょこちょこチップが欲しいウイルスが出ます。で、信号機を正常化させたところでですね、ワールド3の
I'm gonna shoo all of them away and be like, hey, we can take care of the World 3. Just in a month. And Maddie's just like, I'm gonna get revenge on you for this. So she's Mail's on one of those buses right now, and she's taking Mail through a happy little trip through the city while all the lights are on. So we need to try and shut these lights off and try and get that bus stopped. So I hope you're ready for what, 4 more comps of these?
Yeah, there's quite a few networks to go here. Thankfully, they're honestly not very long when you know the puzzle solutions. I think this is quite a novel type of puzzle with the red and blue pathway switching, and it can look pretty cryptic, but it also looks very impressive when just done fluidly.
Yeah, thankfully the areas are small enough to where you don't have to fumble around too much in order to make progression. And when you do them right, they just go by quickly, unless you get encounters like these.
Yeah, this is I've said it before, this is just shocking RNG though in general. Seeing quite a few turn 2 escapes, which is really not what you want to see in these encounters. If you're needing to commit to spending a turn in the encounter, you at least want to like finish the fight and get a reward out of the fight, but taking a turn to escape just feels really bad.
信号機の電の3からですね、メットールサードというまず青いヘルメットのメットールですね。こちらのウイルスが出現するようになりまして、
So yeah, making the way to each individual light sequence so that we can force a switch and redirect the bus so that we're going to eventually stop it in the central area, I believe.
I'm gonna swap in one more escape for later. Just increase our odds of being able to escape from fights, and unfortunately we don't get anything here. We did get a Sonic Wave at least.
Yeah. Getting a double hit on the Aqua virus as well with the Sonic Wave, which is nice. Oh yes. My god.
Yeah, since the Sonic Wave basically attacks tile by tile, and the attack tiles linger for just a little bit, if the swordies step forward like they did, they can get hit twice, once when they're standing and then once when they move forward to the next tile. So that's what happened there, and it was really nice to clear it out. Yeah, really great. There's a Quake 2. Excellent. Quake 2, good game by the way.
Like, it's honestly easy to forget that with the Swordy viruses you can just get the regular sword chips as a reward, so of course that's what happened. The most useless reward.
Oh, that would have been a possible good source for another Quake 2, but I think we just want to leave at that point.
Yeah, Quake 2 is still pretty strong, but I don't know at this point if Jug wants to keep stacking for powerful chips or just go for fastest escapes possible at this point.
There's a guard. I'm not sure if we got a guard earlier, so that would actually be useful for the library if not.
Yeah, I didn't see one, so I think that is a new chip.
信号機の電の4は先ほど言ったメットルサードの他に、アモナキュールっていう、泡に包まれたアンモナイトみたいなウイルスが出てきて、そのウイルスが落としてくれるチップも、図鑑埋めに役立つので、出てきたら積極的に狙いたいところですね。はい、ということで、先に
If there is one thing I do dread about the traffic comps, it's the music. Just hearing that boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo every time you jack in just drives me nuts.
It's a good overall theme, but the fact that you end up hearing the first few seconds of the theme over and over, yeah, it can get a little grating. This is a fight that definitely would like to be able to take, since both potential rewards from that, honestly, very good additions for the folder. Red Wave and Dino Wave, I'd love to have both of those chips in the folder personally. Very nice fight. Get bubble
Yeah.
wrap. Okay.
Yeah, bubble wrap.
Bubble wrap 1. Very nice.
Yeah, not something you put in the folder, but good for library purposes.
これは非常に引きが良かったんじゃないでしょうか。はい。エスケープないですね。できれば逃げたいエンカウントなんですが、基本的にもうチップを取ったらあまり用はないので。
The shield on the bubble wrap regenerated right as the sonic wave was going by.
Yeah, really. Once again, like turn 2 escapes, not at all what you want to see in these fights, but that's just how some of these are panning out. Welcome to playing a game with a lot of RNG.
このエンカウントもですね、アースケ 3C が初手にあると、チップ非常に狙いやすいエンカウントなんですが、あまりいいエスケープもないし、いいチップもなかったですね。まあ、こういった形で、このゲーム終盤の電動も運によってかなりブレたりするので。
It just keeps happening, and again, like, I don't know, I'm not sure about that play, because I would definitely like to finish that fight myself to try for a Dino Wave, both just for having the chip in the folder and getting something in the library. Very good chip to have in general.
Nothing to escape with there. Thankfully, high can is enough to finish that Volgear off. There's another Aqua Tower.
はい、ということで、この後5個目の信号の信号機の連動5なんですが、状況としては、メールちゃんの乗ったバスが結構
Now we're just about done with redirecting the traffic, so opportunities to actually get chips in this network are more or less over here. We do have another long sequence here, but we can keep manually resetting the step counter in this particular network by trying to jack out, and that will bring up a text box with Lance saying, yo, we don't have time to jack out, we've got to keep going, and that counts as a cutscene, I guess, so it just resets the step counter. So as long as you are periodically pressing R to trigger that text box, we'll never get an encounter in this network.
We do have a question in chat if Alexor does not go through Bubble Wrap in 1. That's a good one that I don't remember, because 1 has a lot of really weird quirks that they change in later games with how shields and such work, so I don't have a good answer for that.
I want to say that it doesn't. I think that Bubble Wrap essentially just functions like Barrier from the later games, where it just nullifies one hit.
本体上下に移動する他に前にですね、ミニカラードマンと呼ばれる赤と青の人形を、携えているナビになります。この赤と青の人形も上下に移動して、カラードマンへの攻撃をブロックしてしまうので、なるべくカラードマンに攻撃を当てられるタイミングで。
Alright, this should be the last one right here. Probably going to do another quick folder sort and a save just for safety. Oh, no sort.
で、なるべくその前のミニカラードマンで
Alright, so Colorman's a little bit annoying because he's got 2 statues that can block your attacks. Attacks like Shockwave are really good. Quake is also really good because it hits the entire back row. So basically anything that's not just forward firing is what we want to get. Or if we do get forward firing like the Mega Cannon right here, then the statues are out of the way.
Yep, just want to time it for when they're not blocking the immediate path, and getting a Quake early in this fight is nice. Quake 3 in particular, to crack the middle panel like that so that Colorman is forced to stay in one spot. That makes a lot easier to target, and
that was a fantastic fight.
Yeah, that was a very fast fight, honestly. 24 seconds, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, we haven't been getting good RNG for our random encounters, but the boss fights as a whole have been really good.
So going over to Yai here to get a nice cash payout for a present that we got for her, I believe. And soon going to be coming into everyone's favorite scenario in this game, the power plant comps.
Look, as a network transmission runner, I shudder at the word power plant.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I think pretty much everyone feels the same way with these comps. And so we are taking a little detour here where library situation is a little lacking right now, so we do need a source of some more chips. So we've got a couple of new little mini networks here with some more characters popping up earlier, well, later on in the story. Can also fight those guys if absolutely necessary, but we're just moving on for now. Going to go into the power plant comps. A lot of electric enemies, so again, more opportunities for a lot of new chips, and it is a very long area, so there will be a sizable number of encounters, so there should be plenty of opportunities to get some new chips.
Problem is, a lot of the newer enemies are also pretty bulky HP-wise, so getting into fights without good chips or an escape can cost a lot more time than we've been getting so far.
Yeah, with how many two-turn fights we've seen so far, there is one particular enemy in the power plant comps where you have the ring zap enemies, the corrupted programs. The rank 3 of those enemies, potentially very lethal. Like, getting into some two-turn fights with that, it's very possible to just get outright deleted, as they'll area grab you and area lock you and just come right up to you, and they have a massive HP pool. So there's a very real possibility of just not being able to survive the fight if you don't get the right attacking chips or an escape chip to be able to get out quickly.
Right, so main gimmick of this dungeon is there's a ton of invisible paths, which they did fix in the DS port by adding lights, but we don't get that here. There's one other gimmick too. You can see that battery bar at the very top of the screen on the overworld. You're basically on a time limit, sort of. Once that battery bar runs out, you no longer recover HP between fights, but we're going to finish the dungeon long before that happens.
Yep. And then, of course, the final gimmick of the area being the batteries that we get. And we have these small areas where there's some places to put the batteries in. And depending on the slots you put them in, it may trigger some more pathways to walk on. But the game does not tell you what the correct places to put the batteries in are. Nice Rattan 1, I believe that's a new random chip. And so if you don't know which spots to put them in, you simply need to guess, and the batteries have limited juice. So you only get 2 uses of them before you need to take them back to the program who gave you them and recharge the batteries.
Luckily, the solutions are always the same for each puzzle, and Juguma has everything memorized, so we just need to place the batteries and go.
Yeah, I believe the terminology that the game uses is that correct battery placement will not be adjacent to each other, and as a kid I didn't necessarily know what adjacent meant.
Well, if you picked up a used cart of this, the save file in that cart was probably somewhere in this dungeon.
Okay, we're getting a quick fight out of this ring zap, at least getting both aqua towers, nice. And there we go, alright.
Excellent. Yeah, just the V1 of that virus has 150 HP. I think the others have 2 and 300 respectively. So it's a lot.
It's something like that, yeah. And they attack faster, they area grab more aggressively. They are very worrying enemies to go up against. And juxtaposed with these wind turbine viruses, which are possibly the least threatening enemies in the game, as their attacks only move 3 squares forward, so if you just stay in the back column, they literally can't hit you when they're positioned like that. Their attacks don't go far enough.
Just BN1 quirks.
もう1体の方もこの電脳で拾えるので、
And 2 more batteries. So once again, only clue that you're given is that the batteries cannot be placed adjacent to each other for the solution. And then you just have to know that those 2 corner spots are where you need to place the batteries. Escaping right away from these ring zaps.
I will say, as aggravating as this dungeon is, it does have my favorite dungeon music in BN1. So you at least get to listen to that for at least the first 5 seconds of it over and over.
Yeah, honestly, all of the area themes in their totality are good. It's just a matter of which track do you like the start of, because that's what you're going to be hearing over and over.
Over and over. Actually been getting surprisingly good escape luck in this dungeon. Getting a lot of first turn escapes finally.
So these puzzles are about to get a fair bit more involved, where that up to then it's simply putting the batteries in the correct locations, but we're going to start having some like multi-stage puzzles where you need to basically leapfrog across a couple of different sets of battery units and only use one to be able to go back and retrieve a couple of batteries and then recharge them, get to the next set and take a couple and recharge them again. Like, it can get pretty confusing for how simple some of the puzzles in this game are. Fortunately, no unique chip from that encounter.
Since we're seeing all the Mr. Progs in this area, I just want to point out some quick trivia. Those aren't their ears on top; those are their hands. Congrats if I ruined your childhood. Nice double delete. This is a good chance to get one. Ah, still Zenny again.
Dude. So, as we're seeing here, we have 3 batteries, only using 2 on that first puzzle, using the 3rd on this second puzzle so that we can go back and retrieve these 2 batteries, and yeah. I'm not sure how long this took me to figure out as a kid, but I'm pretty sure I didn't immediately get this.
I had game facts to help me, so I got to cheat my way through. Oh, there's a Thunderball.
Yeah, good.
It's honestly a neat idea for a dungeon. It's just I wish we could escape more easily. That's really the one thing that holds it back.
Yeah, this is the kind of draw and fight that you really don't want to see against this type of virus, especially with the V3s that are going to start appearing. Yeah, there's the area grab, so you progressively have less room to play with, and once you're locked to one column, there's no way to keep them from just being able to hit you. And damage racks up very quickly, and I believe they also leave you with the shock effect where it hurts you every time you move.
Looks like he's gonna see if he can get one of the Remo bit chips off that twisty.
And
Oh, it's a Ratten one. So we got a chip draw, but it wasn't the chip draw we wanted.
I thought you did turn off the power there, because yeah, you can't take the batteries out while the power is still on, but I thought you already had interacted with that.
Good life lesson right there.
ということで、信号これで発電所の電の3も終わりで、この後発電所の電の4なんです
Okay,
が、
so we've got one battery spare, as we're going to have one final box here, which I'm sure for a lot of first-time players, they didn't necessarily have the battery power for this, so I had to go back and rejig stuff again. Like, very
Yeah,
difficult.
you just get there and you're cursing as you have to get through another 4 encounters to get back there with a battery charge. All right, so we're gonna
So-
take a safety save for marathon safety because those V3s of the progs can start appearing here, I think, and they are incredibly deadly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually end up game overing.
44 total chips in the library here, so we need 60 chips in the library to be able to progress to the end game. So we need to see 16 new things. That's a lot, honestly, at this point. There is going to be some shopping in the next scenario where we'll buy several chips that we need, but we still do need to see a few randoms to be able to progress to end game.
先ほど言ったちょっと倒しにくいというか出会うとやばい演歌に合わなければまあいいかなって感じですね。
そうですね、今日は。
はい。これはまあなんとかなる演歌ですね。はい。
This would have been a great encounter to get that Quake 3 in. Shoot.
ちょこちょこ出てきていた壊れたプログラム君のピンク色
Yeah, there's only so much that the folder stacking can do where you are a bit more likely to see chips that are sorted towards the top, but it's never guaranteed. And whilst going through the network areas, we are trying to sort the escapes towards the top of the folder. So, round Q, sorting our attacking chips towards the top for the mini gauntlet of Elecman straight into Proto Man that's about to happen.
Yeah, so for this first fight against Elecman, we can't actually finish the fight. We need to just damage him enough to where he will regenerate HP because the generators are still on. And once he does that, I believe 3 times, a cutscene plays out. And after that cutscene plays out, then we can actually do a real fight.
Yep, take one more safety save.
Yeah, Elecman himself is not too bad. It's the fact that we go straight into another boss fight right after this that's really scary. And this is where the Charge Buster can come in handy because Elecman does not flinch from the full charge, so we can get a lot of damage in there, and then immediately just throw another chip while we're waiting for the cooldown and such. And overall, it's been pretty good luck getting Quake and Wave chips.
And 2 Quakes will finish this off. Just wait for Elecman to stop. And there we go, fight over. So Proto Man is a pretty gimmicky fight. He's going to shield to block most of your attacking attempts and then try to counter-attack. He does only have 2 particular attacks to use though, either Hero Sword where he'll just come up in front of you and slash, or his charge attack here which is simply a wide sword attack. So you either need to sidestep or step back to avoid the attack he's using. He really doesn't use anything else.
Yeah, it's really crucial to not get hit though because he hits like a truck. I think you die in like maybe 3 attacks max.
I think it's...
It might even be 2.
I think it's 2 hits here with 240 HP, yeah. This is a very chokeable fight for sure, where like it is simple, but you only need to make like 1 or 2 mistakes and you just get instantly deleted.
I appreciate the Quake finish right there.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, so really good boss gauntlet right there.
So World 3 unfortunately has all of the elemental programs that they're looking for and can now construct what Wily calls the life virus to try and wipe out Net Society. So we're going to have to find out where the actual World 3 server is located so we can go and take the fight to them. And the only clue that we have is that Higsby used to work for the World 3 and he knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, and we have to keep getting higher levels of access by basically infiltrating their defector network.
ライブラリが60枚埋まってないといけません。で、今、チップが、何枚でしたっけ？
あと4枚。
あと4枚、8枚ですか。はい。なので、このシナリオの中盤ぐらいまでにあと4枚。
Still just picking up a few more chips for library that we can get easily on the way, as well as some money. Like it's just very convenient that we needed to talk to Freud for plot reasons anyway, so we'll pick up stuff that's on the way.
Yeah, getting the World 3 ID from Freud so that we can unlock the World 3 gates that have been periodically placed through the internet areas, giving us another source of some random pickups if we need them. There's several gates that you can use, but there's only a couple that are more or less directly in the path of the networks we'll actually be in. Don't have an exact count on how many random chips we're going to need, but I'm sure that Jug is probably going to double check himself once done with the shopping, and the magic number that we're looking for is 60 chips in the library. I'm gonna guess that we need like 5 or 6 more random chips. That's my guess.
Yeah, the luck hasn't been great overall, so probably about another 5 or 6 random ones. So we're gonna have to really stretch it.
Possible to get another chip trader visit here, I guess, as well. Does have more chips to spend. So doing some shopping here first. Now, don't have all this Zenny to throw away, because we do need to save some for, I think, a couple more HP memories and a power-up, and a elemental armor to raise Mega Man's level, since not only do we need to have 60 chips, we also need to be level 30 to progress to endgame.
HP メモリを拾いに行けば届くんじゃないかなと思ってます。
といった感じなので、まあその辺たまるかどうかはまあおいおいということで、はい、で、ワールド3のサーバーを探すためにまたインターネットに潜り込むんです。
How did that miss?
That was
the most effective tower I've ever seen in BN1, and that's saying a lot.
So using the World 3 ID here to get the chip. Trilance, really powerful chip. So it's possible that he might go for the scripted fireman here. What do you reckon?
Considering like our luck, I think he'll probably go for it. It's not a very long fight considering Fireman. Oh, it looks like he's skipping it. Fireman 2 only has like 400 HP, so it would have been a fairly quick fight.
Yeah, the risk, if there is one, is honestly that once you fight the V2 version of the Navi, it unlocks V3 as a random encounter in that same area. So, yeah, you can get the guaranteed chip from Fireman, but then it's possible to randomly encounter Fireman in this area after that point, which you don't necessarily want.
So doing a lot of step counter manipulation here, using the warps, using NPCs, whatever we can to keep the step count down so we get into less encounters. Because it's a long trip through the net. Like the maps in BN1 for the main net are quite big and convoluted. And anywhere we can try and reduce the number of encounters by lowering the step count, we want to do so.
Dash, I believe, is a new chip, and man, we've got a Met Guard G, we've got a Dash G, now all we need is a Gutsman G, and we're good to go.
Right.
Oh look, all 3 escapes. $52, okay, so 8. That is more than I thought.
I think we'll pick up at least like 1 or 2 more, right? Like I think there's one more World 3 gate to open.
Yeah. And I don't think 50 is a new one. It's hard to tell with the recovery chips.
まあ、何が出るか運なので、このインターネット4は非常に危険度が高くてですね、特に高いのが今のこの
Oh, if we had some good chips, we could have gotten time bomb possibly. Gonna have to skip on it.
非常に動きが速く、
I mean, I guess with the Flappy there, it probably would have been a long fight. Flappy 3 is pretty annoying to deal
こ
with.
のウイルスのチップをこっちもバンバン使ってるんですが、まあ、こっちが使うチップも強いということは、まあ、敵が使っても強いということです。
Yeah, so buying one chip from the shop there, fair
ま
enough.
あこのチップ、こういうのワールドサードのドロップするチップは持っているので逃げます。他のウイルスだとチップ狙いに倒したりするんですが、これロングソードになりますね。
ロングソード。
あ、出ましたね。いいですね。
12.5% です。
いいですね。
I wish I knew which chip that was.
完全に運です。ということで残り3枚になりましたね。
で、インビジブル1も買えるんで残り2枚。
残り2枚ですか。金額そうですね。金額そうですね。18000あったんで。
Yeah, I don't know what it is about this screen in particular, but the encounter rate always feels particularly high on this screen. I think there's been like 3 or 4 encounters already. It is a pretty big map as well, to be fair.
The handies just want their time in the sun. You won't get to see them much. I can't blame them.
So at least one more encounter here before reaching the mini-boss here, I believe.
Yeah, so this mini-boss fight's actually pretty dangerous. You have 2 hard heads, and the... I have no idea what the thing in the middle is called, but that thing has a huge shield that takes a bunch of firepower to get to shoot up, and then after a while it closes back down, so it's very aggravating to get around. So Quake and like shockwaves or bombs are really, really good for this. And unfortunately we have 3 escapes in our folder at a time we can't escape.
There was definitely tri-arrow on the screen there though, so yeah, that's... Or Quick 3. Either way, fight over. Not a bad fight. As long as you get rid of the hard heads quickly so that you have some area to play on, it's a pretty manageable fight.
It looks like we're going to try for Big Bomb here. Should be like an 8 minimum, maybe 9. Yeah, there's a Big Bomb right there. That helps out.
後でインビジブルというチップを買うんで、実質あと1枚ですから、まだ2枚ですが実質あと1枚。こいつはもう取ったんで、ラインズがまあ、エースキューブ9で倒しましょう。はい、投げるだけ。はい、強い。
Second one, here we go.
本当に強い。あ、2枚も。
Easy.
2枚も落ちたんですが、まあ、終盤に落ちたチップは、フォルダに入れる作業。
A little bit more shopping right here.
になってしまうので、あまり入れることはないですかね。
そうですね。自分は入れないですね。
That was a fast encounter after we left the shop. Jeez.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think interacting with the shops does not count as resetting the step counter. So we get locked out of the area by coming out through that area. We don't have the World 3 access privileges, but we know where the World 3 area is now. So now we need to find the network of World 3 members who are going to give us increasing levels of access privilege. And nice, Romo bit 2.
Nice. Yeah. In the meantime, while we're setting all that up, we're actually going to take a trip over here, get some more chips, and that link that we got out of Miu's jar earlier. Is it Miu's jar?
Yeah, this is the Miu link, I believe.
Yeah, so we're going to set that up, enter it from this side, which sets the link, and then later on when we have to come back, we can enter through Miu's jar and get into the deeper part of the net faster, which is much, much faster than going from Lance's house.
And we're also going to set up the... Oh, yeah, this is the dad link here.
And the dad link. Well, I think we're going to get the full bomb series here. Oh, I jinxed it.
So here's where we get the elemental armor. Yeah, we need the 15,000 there, so you need to set aside quite a significant amount of cash. Level 30. Read an email to be able to progress, and 59, so we need one more chip. Chip trader strats?
May go for it. If not, number band's right there.
残念ながら揃ってしまいましたね。
結構順調に揃いましたね、今回。序盤
Or maybe he's banking on getting something else.
厳しいかなと思ったんですけど。
今回ミステリ
Yeah, the random chip situation ended up being better than I thought it was, honestly. Like, only needing one chip at this point is, yeah, that was not as bad as I thought it was going through the game.
普段あまり集めないとこから集めた感じですかね。
そうですね。
なかなか、まあ、一応弾けたらいいなぐらいで弾くんですが、まあそんなに弾けることはないんですが、どれもこれも。メットカードはまあ結構弾けますけど。
So this guy will just give you the first level that you need, and then we're going to need to go and see Miss Marie's sister in Dentown, I believe. And I believe that's where he's going to get the last chip from, since there's either a chip you can grab from the desk, or there's a kid who'll give you a quiz, so you can get a chip from that as well. And I believe Miss Marie needs you to be level 30 before she'll talk to you, and then the final guy, the old man, I think that's the guy who needs you to have 60 chips in the library.
元団員の一人目がこの塾の講師をやっている先生、マリコ先生の双子の姉だか妹だかのゆりこ先生ですね。
Yep, so good to go. This is go mode, as they say. Level 30, 60 chips in the library. This is all the requirements needed to finish the game. So now it's just get story flags and get to the end of the game.
チップの新規入手は完全にいらなくなります。これが意味するところは後で説明するんですが。
This entire game is a randomizer. Everything's random.
Unless you play any percent.
リンクメモはキャラ町にいるおじいさんからもらいます。このおじいさんからリンクメモをもらうためにロックオンのレベル30以上が必要なので、ここで確実に30以上になるような。
Yeah, this is a fairly lengthy scenario, but thankfully we're already in like the back end of it. Don't have to go too much farther. It's thankfully not like, say, Freeze Man scenario in 2 where it takes like 20 plus minutes.
So we're going to use Dad's link now to be able to access the deepest part of the net. And we're going to try and access the World 3 server and find that it's being guarded by Bomb Man, who is not the final boss of the game, but is the final boss of the run. As at the very end of the game in the World 3 comps, we have a very, very, very significant skip.
It also really works out nicely that Dad's comp is the fastest way to get to the net, because when we finish the Bomb Man fight, we actually need to be in the office anyways for plot, so it's just we can just jack out and we're already there.
It's always gotten to me like how willing Land's dad is to just let him like run off into this situation, as opposed to the later entries in the game where, like, you know, later on Land's dad at least tries to be like, no, this is too dangerous, you should let like other people take care of it. But in this game he's practically like, oh, you're gonna go and take on this cyber terrorist organization? Sounds good. Good luck, son.
It says something along the lines of, hey, you are responsible if you trigger like a war. No pressure for a 10-year-old.
タイムを落として自己ベがなくなったっていうこともあるので、
はい、悲しいですね。
はい。
本当にこのゲームのエンカウントは何度も言いますがブレるので、ちょっと歩いただけでエンカウントがする。
Virus is going to start becoming very threatening in these areas, but as long as we keep drawing escapes and just take the shortest paths possible, shouldn't be more than a couple of encounters on each screen, and we're only a couple of maps away from Bomb Man. Any extra fire chips that we have also very helpful in the Bomb Man encounter, since a nice little quirk is that you can use fire chips to trigger his own bombs, and if they detonate on his side of the field, they will deal very heavy damage to him instead of you.
Ooh, didn't even get a second turn escape. That's really unfortunate luck.
We're not getting the turn 3? Are we bottom decking all the way? Yeah, that's a complete bottom deck. Wow.
3回、アドを2回するとですね、全30枚あるフォルダのうち上15枚がオープンするんですが、その中に5枚入ってるはずのエスケープ1枚も入ってないということが、まあ、
RNG was rigged that fight.
Imagine, like, that's. I don't know if we've got any like card game statisticians in viewing the stream, but like, I don't know, you've got a deck of 30 cards, you've got like 5 duplicates of a particular card that you need, you have half your deck in your hand, and you haven't got the card that you need. How likely is that exactly? and you have stacked the deck so that you are favored to see the card that you want near the top.
エンカウント数2で抜けれたり3で抜けたりっていうのはちょっとブレるんですが、これまた微妙なところで変化しましたね。
これは2で行きたいぐらいの距離ですけど、
いけると思うんですけど、
変化判定は入るので。
いけましたね。いいですね。
Alright, final map here though. Just run to the end of this area, and this is a surprisingly very short area if you're just running to the back of it. Should only be 2 or 3 encounters here, I want to say.
ボンバーマンは上下左右に誘爆する爆弾をこっちのエリアに蹴り込んでくるといった行動パターンになってます。まあどこぞのハドソン
Yeah, if the step RNG is very good here, we'll actually get to the end without an extra encounter here, but it just depends.
140ダメージありまして、ロックマンの HP は今260なので、
Yep, looks good. So salt folder again for attack chips. Take a last safety save. And here we go with Bomb Man. 2 Aqua Towers on turn 1, pretty nice.
Oh, that one whiffed.
How did that not even try to target him?
I think the towers are on strike today. Yeah, the only thing about this fight is that the bombs can also block like the forward-facing attacks, so we need to be very careful when we're firing stuff like mega cannons. Like, see, now they're in the way.
Yeah, this is a really unfavorable fight so far, kind of getting stuck in a cycle here, and having already taken 1 heavy hit, this is get hit again and you get deleted. Which I believe Bombman is also about to drop a mine, although this is about to be the end of the fight, so okay, that actually really picked up towards the end of the fight there.
Worked out nicely.
Definitely not a good start to the fight, but the cleanup at the end of the fight was very, very fast there. And as I said, that is the final boss of the run, believe it or not. This is a single segment run, but it absolutely is not a glitchless run. We already saw a mini-boss skip in the Waterworks comp, and we're going to skip basically the entirety of the main World 3 network at the end of the game. All we're going to see is the repeat of the Fireman comps at the start.
Yeah, it's kind of cute how they made the final dungeon. Each area is basically a reskin of previous dungeons condensed into one room. That includes the fireman part of the oven comp that we saw at the very beginning of the game. This skip coming up involves just how memory addresses work and how the flags in this game are set. So we're only going to play up to a certain point, and then we will basically be able to end the game because we've set the correct flag.
I wonder if this bug is still going to exist in the Anniversary Edition.
That's a good question.
So we have to talk to this guy first, who mentions something about hearing a secret metro line somewhere, and we find, oh, underneath the school, this apparently just goes to the World 3 headquarters, but there's some security and our pass doesn't work, so we need to go and get Dad to fiddle with it, and again, he's more than willing, just is like, yeah, alright, there you go, just go straight into danger with no backup or nothing of any sort, just go right ahead. But little did he know, it's only going to take a couple of minutes once we're there. We're not actually going to have to get into any real danger because the game's going to be over.
Yeah, the ending of this run used to be a lot scarier when we still had to do Magic Man, but cutting him out... Well, it's funny because we already skipped the final boss in the past. Now we just skip the final dungeon harder.
Yeah, it's Magic Man, and honestly, if you're on really tight world record pace, the additional skip for the life virus is a choke point in and of itself. Like, you know, if you miss getting the skip, that itself is run over if you don't have the time to spare. However, we are just a couple of minutes from the end of the game. We only have the one network to go here, the repeat of the Fireman comp. Like you say, it's cute that they do this. It's kind of like, in my opinion, it's just using a bit of the classic Mega Man formula where you have the refights near the end of the Wily area. And although you don't refight the Navis themselves, you get the callbacks to their individual areas. So I see it as a form of refights. But we're going to get a couple of ice cubes to use. The encounter rate is very high in this network, is one thing to note. That getting an encounter after talking to that NPC is pretty favorable step count RNG. Expect to see at least a couple more encounters before we get to the end here. And by the end, I mean interacting with a particular fire, which sets a flag in memory, and then if you return to town, it calls the ending cutscene. That is literally all that's going to happen.
Yeah, we call it Reddit skip because somebody was having just a casual playthrough and they extinguished that very same fire and thought, I don't feel very prepared to go farther into the dungeon. Let me go back to town and buy some stuff. And conveniently, the game ended right there. And
right here, that's the
so that one. So this was posted to Reddit, and a bunch of people in the community got together, was able to figure it all out, and we have this really, really neat skip that allows us to just end the game and skip most of the final dungeon.
And that is time.
Time.
It really just creeps up on you at the end like that. That is it. That's the end of the run. GG's to Jug.
Yeah, great run for Jaguma overall. 1:30 is a pretty solid marathon time. Didn't even have to do any reloads from the safety saves.
Yeah, considering how unfavorable a lot of that RNG was, to be rushing on getting a sub 1:30 in a marathon, very, very nice run, yeah. I'd be really happy with getting this time.
This also means network transmission is a better run than one because you actually fight Life Virus.
Yeah, network transition definitely has its perks. It's a pretty cool run in and of itself. I think it's a pretty underrated game. Like it gets a bad rap for being like a fusion of Battle Network and the classic Mega Man, but like they're both good. They're both good types of games. Like, what's the problem?
They're very interesting runs, and one has some really, really cool categories. In my opinion, it's definitely the least polished of the main 6, but the runs definitely have a lot to offer for all categories.
Yeah, I think the runs definitely make the most out of the less refined mechanics that one has to offer. And we're just going to wait until the end of the credits here to see in-game time, which is not the official timing method used for this category, but it's a nice little secondary timing metric, and when it's a single segment run, it should be accurate. 1:26. So, very nice run there by Jagumba. And thank you guys very much for the opportunity to help present this run. A big fan of this run, big fan of this series.
Yeah, if you like watching Battle Network runs, you should definitely go follow Jagumba, because he runs all 6 main games and it has the record for the ending percent in all of them. He's really, really good, and he's very, very friendly and welcoming.
Yeah, very talented runner, and if you're interested in learning more about this series of speedruns, please come visit us at Team BN. Our Discord should be pretty easy to find through speedrun.com and such. Always love seeing new runners, so thank you guys very much for having us, and best of luck with the rest of the marathon. I believe next up we have Odin Sphere up next, so I'm going to hop off and let you all get set up. So, best of luck, guys, and I'll catch you later.
Yep, catch y'all later.
そうですね。まあ、完走した感想は先ほど述べたように、一発勝負で出して嬉しいタイム、ただちょっと細かいミスが多くて悔しいって感じですね。まあ、こんなもんではい。はい。だけど最後にちょっと一つだけ、そうですね、来年4月14日に6枚上シリーズ10作品が収録された6枚エグゼアドバンストコレクションというものが発売されます。これは実はオンラインネットバトル、ランクマッチ等も存在しており、さらにエグゼ6の例の BGM が修正されると、スタッフ側の本気も伺える作品となっておりますので、ぜひ皆様、ご購入のほどよろしくお願いします。お願いします。というのと、あとそうですね、今回、本当のエンディングとか、本当のラストのシーンが見せられなかったので、続きはアドコレでということで、以上とさせていただきたいと思います。はい、ということで、安さんの方から大丈夫ですか？僕は大丈夫です。はい。というわけで、ご視聴ありがとうございました。RTA In Japan ウィンター2022、まだまだ続きますので、どうも。あれまだまだ続きます。はい、引き続きご視聴なってください。ありがとうございました。ありがとうございました。